Welcome to Current Issues in Athletic Administration, and welcome to the first ever episode of this show. Excited today to be joined by Warren Reed, who is at Ruben S. Ayala High School in Chino Hills, California. Coach, thanks for agreeing to be the guinea pig on this thing and jumping on so we can see how we can add value into our colleagues' lives by maybe talking about some of the things we're all dealing with these days.
Appreciate you having me on, Justin.
So let's dive in. Let's start by getting a background of what is your role currently at the site level, at the section level, at the state level. I know you are a section VP in the Southern section, but talk a little bit about that so that we know the breadth of experience that we're sharing here today and where people can find you if they want to reach out and have follow-up conversations around anything we talk about today.
Okay, so I think NEAD is going to start off with their coaching resume a little bit. So I started coaching when I was 19. I started coaching at my alma mater, South Hills High School in West Covina. Ran the program there for about 7 years and was finishing up school. Had a 3-year stint as an assistant wrestling coach at Cal State Fullerton. Finished up my degree and was ready to find something new and a different avenue for coaching. And that led me to Ayala High School. I coached wrestling and football here. And about 13 years ago, when our previous aide, Steve Martin, who's a legend in our area, um, he opened up quite a few schools and had his longest tenure here at Ayala High School, decided to retire after a 38-year career on a whim and not really knowing exactly what the job entailed. And I applied for the position and there was quite a few of us that applied, and I was fortunate enough to come out on the right side of it and got the job. That kind of rolled into getting involved with our local association, the Foothills Citrus Athletic Directors Association. Became the president, got voluntold that I was going to be the president of that organization. Usually that happens when you're not at the meeting, but I was actually present at the meeting, looking at these people like, really? This is what you guys are doing to me? I'm sitting right here. But it was actually a blessing in disguise. That has opened up my eyes to the role of an athletic administrator and what we should be doing. And we can't do it on our own, that's for sure. And those colleagues of mine in that organization have been so inspirational and helpful to me. So I did that for a few years, and then the role of the section VP opened up, and I was voluntold again. That's what I was going to be doing, and that actually has even opened up my eyes even more to what's out there and what the role is of an athletic administrator on not only your campus, but what you can do in your section as well. And that's been probably one of the best things that I've ever taken on and been able to grow from, is doing that extra role, being a section VP. And there's 4 of us in the section, in the Southern section, that are VPs to the CSADA. And we've got a little over 650, 660 schools in our section. So we represent quite a few people, which we try to do our best with that and bring back things from the state level to our areas and try to help athletic administrators grow in their roles on their campuses.
Thank you for that. And for those of you that are listening from outside California, California has 10 sections in the state. We have, I think, going on 1,500 schools in the state. So over a third of those are in the southern section that Coach just described. And as I was trying to get the map in my head earlier today, basically runs from Camp Pendleton, which is just north of San Diego, all the way up to, I would say, where are we at? Santa Barbara area-esque, right? And then
Yeah.
east and then into the Inland Empire, and includes everything except for the LA City section.
It goes all the way out to the Arizona-California border in the San Bernardino County area. It's big. There's a lot of area we cover.
Awesome. So there's a lot to be covered and a lot of stuff going on, I'm sure. So before we dive into the athletic director current issues, I do want to ask something based on what you said, that you followed a 38-year legend who came before you. And I would love a 2-minute soundbite on, number one, what's that to step into the shoes of someone that's been there that long? And what advice you have 13 years later, if you had to do it again, to help other people that are stepping into that role versus a situation that maybe hasn't had as much of a long-standing history and tradition.
So I think probably the first thing that I have to say is that if I picked up my cell phone right now and number 5 on my speed dial is Steve Martin. So he has been a huge impact in being available to me, not only to me, but any of our coaches here, anybody in the state of California, he'd help out. So that's first and foremost. Second, I was very fortunate that my athletic secretary, she told me that she was going to stay on. Her name's Peggy Falls, and she told me she was going to stay on the job when she paid off her vehicle. She had just started, bought that car, and it's been a long time. She's been with me ever since. She's coming back next year. She could retire. She's got 13 grandkids. And so she's been a huge impact as far as giving me some of that institutional memory, making sure that I didn't screw things up, that all the good work that Steve had done. So I think that's probably been the most important, is having those two people that I can rely on. Something that I would probably tell myself the first few years. I remember that first year, my wife said, "Something's wrong. You're losing a lot of weight." And I was eating exactly the same. I just wasn't maybe eating as much, and I was stressing out. And I just probably would tell myself to just relax, make sure that the mission that I came in with when I first started coaching to when I was a special education teacher as well, is putting the student athletes and the students first and putting them in the middle of everything that I do and try to do. So by having that mindset, it's relaxing and knowing that we're doing the best we can for our students. I think that's what I would tell myself, remind myself, keep that in mind, that you're trying to do it for the right reason.
I love that, and that's something that I reference often in our conversations that I got from my former president, which was, we need to keep the student at the center of the equation. And I think a lot of times we let adult problems get in the way of kids. And how can we make sure that we don't do that and remember who we're serving? And I love that you were reminded of that in regards to how to deal with your stress. Okay, so pivoting to why we are here on this particular show in our opening episode, I'm going to steal from my friend and our colleague, Anthony Thomas, and lead off with, what weighs most heavily on your mind right now from a professional standpoint? Right. So when we talk about current issues in athletic administration, what are the things that you can't put down right now that are keeping you up at night? Right. And it can be a lot, it can be one, whatever. And we'll dive into this and pull at some threads to try to help our colleagues.
I think probably the number one thing for us, for me right now, is our fan behavior in the stands. That's something that has, unfortunately, since COVID, has, I believe, gotten a little bit worse. You can see from our section, we've got new rules coming out, how to deal with parents that need to be ejected, or just fans in general need to be removed from a sports setting. And I worry about how that's going to affect our coaches, and also, more importantly, how it's going to affect our student athletes and their experience in education-based athletics. Just the last safe place for them. They're not spending all kinds of money to participate, and just making sure that environment for them stays pure and clean, and it's a fun, safe place for them to experience things.
That's a great place to start. And as we discussed, we're going to figure this thing out as we go, coach. But what jumps to my mind is, what have you found to be successful? What have you tried and had it fail? What are some things maybe you've heard of other people doing that you're looking forward to trying? And let's start at the site level, because this is one of those things that I think, while there is, hell, not just a state or local, but a national level issue with this, right? And we see it on the news and we see the things with officials and how people are stopping from the profession. But I also do feel that there are places where that's not an issue. And so how can we crowdsource what works? So I'd love to hear your story, right? What have you tried? What hasn't worked? What's starting to work? What are you excited to try? What are some things maybe that you're curious about?
I think what's been most successful for us is presence, making sure that not only is the athletic director present, but having administration present. I think our relationship with our families can be very helpful. We had a situation quite a few years ago at a football game, an away football game, and I heard things coming from the stands and looked back, and it was two adults arguing with one of the opponent's players on middle of a football game. Now, we were fortunate enough to be winning the game. And I think that's probably what kind of spurred this on. They felt comfortable running their mouths at a kid. I climbed up over into the stands and went straight up to the parents and the people that were sitting there. Is come to find out, it was a grandfather and one of his grandsons. It was over 18, and just told them that we don't do that. That's not what we're going to allow people to do. You're not going to talk to a student athlete in the middle of a competition on the other team. And around those people, there was lots of other parents there that, and I knew quite a few of them. And afterwards, I had quite a few that came up and thanked me for doing that. And I wish they didn't have to. I think making sure that we have those kind of relationships with people, because that could have turned, probably what wasn't one of my smartest things to do, but that could have turned in a different way that would have not been fortunate for any of us. And luckily, they did quiet down and it worked. But that was something that I hope I would never have to do again. Something that I haven't done that I did hear at one of the conferences, one of the national conferences that I was at, was an athletic director said that he would carry around popsicles, blow pops or Tootsie Pops. And if he had a parent that was a little too much in the stands, or a fan that was too much in the stands, he'd walk up and just hand them a popsicle or a lollipop or whatever, in hopes that they would take the hint that meant put it in your mouth and stop running your mouth. So that's something I haven't done yet. I have offered a mint to a parent one time, but that's something that I would like to try.
I think what you led with, presence is huge, right? If you don't have people there that can intervene before it gets out of control, you're setting yourself up for failure. And then number two, the thing that I think is most important, and obviously I'm in a different situation, we're a small school, but the relationships is also huge, right? If you know everybody that's walking through the door, it's a whole lot easier to give them a look and they cut it out. And then over 4 years, as you're graduating culture, the new culture gets established. So where I have struggled since I came home. So I live on the Monterey Peninsula. I'm working at my alma mater. I spent my formative years in Sacramento at an 1,800 student public school, serving under a legend named Bill Baxter as the AD. And we would have these college level rivalry games with the local schools, right? Where it was like everything on TV, and it was wonderful. Very rarely did it get out of hand. It was all in good spirits. But when I got back down here and it was like, hey, I miss this atmosphere, it was like, yeah, we don't do that here. And it's that fine line of when you entertain some of that behavior, the tipping point is so much closer. And so how do you walk that line, coach, of I think our subtitle as athletic directors is fun police, which I tell people all the time, but also keeping it bottled up, but also allowing them to stretch their legs a little bit and engage in the game as a fan base.
I think a lot determines whether I come up and talk to somebody or not is what they're saying. Being loud and positive, I can listen to that and we can deal with that all day long. But we are going to be our standards are very high, and we're going to be very unapologetic on those standards. And I think that's probably been the moral compass for us, is what is being said matters. Another thing that I think has been helpful is every season of sport, I have a parent meeting, a mandatory parent meeting. Every parent has to come to this meeting. We have them sign in. I don't get 100%. I'm not delusional, but I'll get 400 parents that show up to these meetings, and we talk about behavior. We talk about in the stands. And if anybody wants what I send out in the stands or what we have, they can email me and I'll send it to anybody. But it's just what the behavior we expect in the stands. And I think that's been beneficial. So when I do walk up in the stands, or I do have to talk to somebody at a wrestling match or a basketball game or a soccer game, they've already heard this stuff before. They know when I say, have you read in the stands? Do you need a new copy of that? And I think that's been beneficial, trying to front load parents and spectators as much as we can.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that's a proven strategy over the years in having those meetings at the beginning of the year, because then you can hold people accountable. And I know there are schools that won't let the kids play and won't let the parents attend unless they have attended those onboarding meetings, right? I don't know if you guys go to that level, but I know that is a strategy. Really quickly, before we get off this topic, what role do you think coaches play in this based on their outward behavior and projection in regards to athletes and spectators figuring out what's appropriate and not? And what have you done to make sure your staff is modeling those behaviors, right? Because this is something that we all deal with. It's, hey, I love your passion, but look, man, we got to dial this back. And here's how we're going to present ourselves. Talk a little bit about your experience with that.
So every year we have a head coaches meeting, and we go over things like this in that meeting. What's the expectations? What we expect out of them as head coaches, and then what the expectations should be from their program. I'm very fortunate. We have some very seasoned coaches that they get it. They are coaching for the right reasons. And the coaches that haven't continued with us, sometimes it's because they haven't gotten that message that it's education based athletics, and we're going to model what we expect our players to do. And we're also going to do the same thing with our parents. So if you're an out of control coach and I see it, we're going to have a conversation. But also, we want to make sure that our coaches are pushing that same message in the stands. Not only are they hearing it from me, but we want our coaches pushing that out, not only through their lower level coaches, to their players all the time, but at their parent meetings as well. The expectation is that those conversations are happening there as well.
Yeah, I think that's super important in regards to one of my buddies, and he stole this, I think, from Focus 3 group, which is what you permit, you promote, right? So if you're allowing your coaches to act a certain way, you're actually telling everybody that's okay. And so how do you get that in line, and how do you set that standard and not lower it to where, yeah, you know what? Maybe this isn't the right place for you if this is the way in which you're going to behave. And I always joke with ours, it's like, look, what's the real value of having engagement with an official? Like, at what point have you ever seen a call changed? Now, how about they show up and you greet them by name and you give them some water and you ask if you can get anything? Like, that's good use of your time. But all this other nonsense, not helping anybody.
100%. And I think as an AD, one thing that I've tried to do a little bit more over the past few years is when I have a coach that is doing the right thing and modeling the right thing, I need to make sure I acknowledge that. Whether that be nominate him as a staff member of the month, whether it's just sending him an email, picking up the phone and giving him a call, going by practice and letting him know. A perfect example of that, if you mind, if I can here just real quick. I received an email. We're in summer camp. We're not in some serious stuff going on right now. It's summer camp right now. And I had an email from an employee who actually was alumni of our school, who worked at our school as a counseling tech for many years, moved on, and she's actually a school secretary now in our district. She sent me an email and she wanted to let me know that she was walking out of Starbucks the other day with her huge venti hot black coffee, getting into her classic 1965 Mustang that she loves and she had when she was here. And the lid fell off and she spilled coffee all over the place. She walked back inside Starbucks, got her napkins, was walking out, and she noticed there was somebody following her. This person was following her with a bunch of napkins, helped her clean out her car. She got to thank him and appreciated what he was doing for her, found out that he was my girl's head soccer coach. When I got that message, I walked out to practice. They were finishing up their summer camp. I told Coach, don't let anybody go. And I made sure that entire program knew what their coach had done that morning. Not only does that show those student athletes what they should be doing and how they should be acting, but it also gave that coach an attaboy. And he's a walk-on coach. He's not an educator by trade. We're just fortunate that he is that kind of a person. So I think acknowledging some of those positive behaviors that our coaches are doing, whether it's small or big, I think is real important as an athletic administrator.
No, it's such a great story. And the way that you were able to add value to that by acknowledging him and sharing that story, because I guarantee you he's not telling anybody, right? He's just going about his day. That's how he's normally engaging the world. It is awesome as well, because, right, there's not enough attaboys that anybody gets on a day-to-day basis. Okay, let's pivot to the southern section. And as a VP, that's what you're dealing with. That's what's keeping you up. And I'm sure that's a similar thread with a lot of people in your section. What else are the things that are coming up at your section meetings, at your VP meetings, at your Foothill, what did you call it? Foothill Citrus Athletic Association, right? What's coming up that the collective is trying to solve besides fan behavior, right? What are those things that are specific to your region, your area that you can share?
The biggest thing that we dealt with this last year was we had a soccer official issue. There was some disputes about pay and how to navigate through that. That was a big deal. I can't tell you. I had an appreciation for our assigners before. I really understood what they did and what they do for us and for our student athletes. But when I had to become the assigner for my soccer program, both boys and girls at all levels, I got a different appreciation for what they have to deal with. Officials canceling, and we were scrambling, finding college kids and people that have experience in officiating soccer games. So that's a big concern. We're not sure if that has been completely resolved yet. I know that as ADs, we're all hoping that's not going to happen again. We're going to have our normal CIF officials back. We miss them dearly. But I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And like we spoke about the fan behavior, the other thing is the financial component of athletics now. When I first started as an AD 13 years ago, I think I was paying about $65 for a football. And I just reordered and I'm paying 107 now. Those prices keep going up. The official fees go up as they deservedly should. So I think the financial component of it is definitely weighing how much do we pass that on to our gate receipts and where's the balance and trying to keep things as nice for our student athletes and coaches as we can, but also make sure that we're staying within our budget. That's a big concern, I think, for a lot of us in our area.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask two follow-ups. The first one, and you can answer this, and I'll come to the second one, but I'm gonna lay them both out so you can pick which one you want to dive into first. Number one, given the landscape of the officials shortage, right? And everybody in the room's got an opinion. We're paying more, we're getting less. Why are we doing this? We should just do our own thing. You can speak to that real clearly now, right? Hey, you guys need to appreciate what they're doing and be thankful. And how are we adding more talent to the pool, right? What are we doing? What are you actively doing? What has been messaged to recruit new officials? Anything that's worked, anything that hasn't worked that you want to stay away from? And then the second piece goes right into that escalating finances, right? What have you tried? What are people around you trying? What adjustments are you making to try to keep it as sustainable as possible? So take both of those, whichever way you want to go. I'll remind you if you have to come back to the second one.
Okay. I'm going to actually jump on the second one first, if that's okay. I think that probably the biggest thing that I've done to try to help with that financial component is be very frugal. What I mean by that is, do we need that or do we want that? Addressing our need first and foremost, and then relying more towards our booster club for some of the want that we want to have for our program. I think also is I tell every vendor that I deal with that I appreciate everything they do for us, but my loyalty is not to a vendor. My loyalty is to my student athletes and my coaches. And I'm going to shop every year. I'm going to shop around and find the best deal that I can. Because if I'm buying a Wilson football, I can buy that Wilson football from three different people. And if one of them is going to give me a better price, that's who I'm going to buy that football from. Because I can buy more balls for my coaches and kids. So I'm going to spend the money wisely. So that's probably the best advice that I can give anybody is it takes time and it's dealing with different people. And I know it's easier just to call that same person every year. But shopping around, I think, has been very helpful for us with our finances here.
That's great advice. And I think there's two sides to that equation, right? There's the all school agreement and the vendor that you're comfortable with, where ultimately over the course of time, you're building a relationship and a rapport. And then there's the prices are what they are. And if you're hungry and you want to shop, you can find other things to get that done. So it's every school side is different. I love the need or the want question. I have that all the time. I tell my coaches, look, I've never told you no, ever. Is it a need or a want? All right, go back to that other question about officials, right? How are we doing our due diligence? And we often get asked from our signers every year, hey, we need your help bringing in people. What have you seen that's worked versus like I gave the card to a handful of people, but we haven't really increased our pool.
I think probably the biggest thing that we're trying to push here at our campus, and I know that there are other athletic directors in our area that are doing the same thing. If you've got that student athlete that's a senior that you know is maybe going to stay local, is maybe JCing it or going to a local college nearby, who is a very good human being, meaning they've got a moral compass that is doing the right thing when maybe nobody's looking, encouraging them to become an official in the sports that they competed in high school. One of the officials that I utilized during, actually three of the officials that I utilized during our soccer issue last year were former players here who one of them actually had some semi-pro experience in officiating soccer games, and getting him to come back and help out was something I talked to him about when he was a senior. He was a multi-sport athlete here at our school, and him coming back and giving back in that way was meaningful to him, and it was also something that was beneficial for our program and our student athletes here.
That's such good advice. And it's funny because we're a unique school in that our kids all leave. And the idea of let's recruit our kids that are sticking around and help, I feel like my hands are tied because we can't really support the pool. But I'm sitting here thinking, as you're saying that, what's keeping me from reaching out to all my former athletes who aren't playing a college sport and saying, hey, you know what? You want some easy money? Go ref where you're at college. And I hadn't even put two and two together until you just said that. And so I may not be helping our area, but we can help some other people's area. And I love the way you framed that. Okay. Closing. And as we discussed, we're shooting from the hip on this thing, coach. Your guest one episode tester here. Here's my question. What would you ask another AD if you had a captive audience? And part of this is going to be when I interview Eddie tomorrow, I'm going to ask him. So you're going to get an answer. But what would that be in regards to trying to, number one, grow your toolbox, but maybe also try to solve something you've been wrestling with?
I think probably one of the other topics that's real big that I've always struggled with is the whole transfer thing, the whole transfer component. How deep do we need to go? How much onus or pressure is on the athletic director of the intaking school? And then on the other side of that, how much is on the outgoing school? It's a small community of athletic directors. And I know in our area, we all stick together and we look out for each other. But there's people that just don't seem to do things the way that they should be doing them. And that's very difficult, I think, to navigate when there's new athletic directors popping up at schools and people moving around. And unfortunately, sometimes those negative connotations stick with people. But I'm always looking for ways and how to approach the transfer part of it, whether it's a VCR or an SOP or international. Sometimes we get kids from out of the country. And so any advice that I can get from a transfer perspective would be great. I know that the section or our section is trying to deal with those things. I know it's a statewide issue. Other states have just one transfer and that's it. That's all you get in high school and it's done. But the transfer part is definitely a part. We don't get a whole lot here. We don't lose a lot. We don't get a lot. We're an average school, I think, no more than maybe 10 a year. But sometimes those 10 are real important. So I think that's probably a question that I would love to get some help with.
I love that as a topic. I didn't have it on my list, but I do now. And I will try to get you an answer on one of these episodes. And I am going to personally reserve my opinion and share it with you offline because I'm going to be hosting a lot of these. But as you mentioned, and for those of you that are listening, it's an arduous process and the bylaws continue to get bigger. That's like the tax code. And it's very much it has to fit within the bylaws. And sometimes the spirit of the rule gets overshadowed by the letter of the rule and it makes it real complicated. So I love that topic. I'm definitely going to get some answers out there on the pod for you in the future. And hopefully we will get some people that can reach out. And ironically enough, right? I'm assuming a much bigger school. We got about 500 kids and we get about 50 transfers a year because we have an international population and we have certain things. And I have a little bit of experience in that we'll talk about offline. But thanks for being the first guest, Coach. I appreciate having you on. Everybody who's listening, if you like the show, plug in as we drop these every week to figure out what's going on in athletic administration. And I'll add in the show notes for people that like to listen. Where can people find you if they do want to have a follow-up on any of the stuff you mentioned, Coach?
Yeah, you can reach me at ayalasport.com. That's our athletic website. My email address, warren_reed@chino.k12.ca.us. Shoot me a line. Anything I can help anybody with, anywhere, just shoot me a line. I'd be more than happy to help or talk and help anybody out I can.
Thanks, Coach. And I'm going to echo that. You can get me at jclimo@stevensonschool.org. But I think the real takeaway, especially for people that are newer in the profession, 98% of the people you reach out to will get back to you. They'll pick up the phone. They want to help because they also can learn from you. So don't ever be afraid to reach out to the person next door and just ask what they're doing.
You're definitely not alone in this, guys. Do not think that you're alone, guys or ladies. You're not alone. Anybody will help you. Just reach out to somebody in your area will definitely help you. If not, reach out to me. I'll definitely will help you.